Hello, and welcome to the Why Not Today podcast. This is our first episode, and my name is Leslie Kane, and I am a sales director, and Mary Kay is my primary job. But I am a sister, a daughter, active in the community, a friend, a connector, someone that loves life, loves to travel, loves to help people, bless people, and make a difference. And so, why not today? That's the name of the podcast. And where did this come about? So, several years ago, I was walking with a friend of mine who was doing a podcast, and just something in my heart said, try a podcast. And something has just been stirring in me to do a podcast. And my friend Bianca's like, you should do it, and encouraged me. I've got a couple of the friends doing podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. And so I thought, maybe, but never acted on it and just kind of been thinking about it. And then in September, there's a social media site called Nextdoor, and actually happened to be September 11th, 2021. Somebody that I didn't know who he was, but he posted, and I don't look at these very often, but for some reason it showed up in my email and I looked at it. And it was from a gentleman named John Pinkman that lives here in Reston. And he had a picture of himself with an eye patch. And he said, old friends, a few weeks ago, I had brain surgery. The aftermath required me for a short period of time to wear a patch to resolve an acute double vision condition. Each morning, I wake up and look in the mirror. I remind myself of an old friend. Many of you already know who I'm talking about, except for the famous handlebar mustache. It was Pat Kane, which, if you don't know, that was my father. Pat was a community leader, architect, planner, organizer who was decades ahead of his time. We shared a simple thought: why not today? He left an indelible mark on Reston and other communities that he served, most of all, our Reston family. And that just spoke to me. And so I started thinking, why not today? And so I'm part of a big family, and I thought, and unfortunately, part of my family has traveled other places recently, or really mostly to Colorado. But I thought, that might be a fun legacy to share. So I took the story, printed it out, created a logo. I had my graphics person create a logo that said, why not today? And not only just why not today, it included my father's logo. And if you knew my dad, which a lot of people did, he made a big difference in the lives of many people. He had an eye patch and a handlebar mustache. So he always signed everything with a little circle with an eye patch and a handlebar mustache, to the point that it was his signature. And when he was sick, before he passed away, most of my family went and got tattoos with that logo. And so, why not today? I wanted to do this to share some ideas, talk to people, hear people's stories, but share my dad's legacy and carry on his legacy. When he did pass away, 9 years ago now, it's hard to believe, but he made a difference. And a lot of people knew who he was, and he made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And so if I always wanted to do something around this, I actually talked about a nonprofit in his name, but just never had the right thing that spoke to my heart. So this Why Not Today really speaks to me, and to share my dad's story and to share other people's story. So my father was a very positive person. He never met a stranger, never faced a problem that there wasn't a solution to. It was always figure outable, somebody I heard said. He made a difference in the community. He actually started the Reston Chamber with a couple people, and not because he had local business, but because he was raising 6 children in Reston and wanted to be involved in the community. I didn't realize how connected he was and what a difference he made until in 2000 he had a stroke. And I would walk through parking lots and people would say, how's your dad? I'm like, first of all, who are you? And how do you know who my dad is and that it is my dad? So he just made a huge difference in connecting people, helping people in the community. I've heard endless stories of kind things he's done. I've heard from friends that they had more conversations with my father than they ever did their own father. He, as I said, was super connected in the community. Most people knew him. often I'll have people stop me and they're like, are you I'm like, yes, I'm a Kane. Or they're like, I know the last name. I actually had a customer come into my house one day and saw a picture of my dad. She's like, how do you know Pat Kane? I'm like, well, she hadn't put two and two together with her last name. My nieces and nephews that grew up in Sterling would come into Reston for things and had sports, hoodies that had their last name. And people are like, oh, are you related to Pat Kane? They're like, how does everybody know us? Because he left a legacy. He made a difference. He ask you questions. He made you think, which was not a great thing that I appreciated as a teenager doing homework. But looking back, definitely, it made a difference in my life. And I always wanted to be able to have a lifestyle to make a difference in the lives of others. And that's the life I've created for myself as a sales director with Mary Kay, over 27 years of my business, and full-time for the last 22 years. I've been able to create a life and have that flexibility and create a life to be able to share and do those things. And when my dad was sick, I was able to be there. When he passed away, I was able to be sad and be able to create that life because I said, why not today? And I was courageous. I mentioned his logo, and we actually call it Flat Pat because after he passed away, my mom's like, oh, I wish we would have done this and I wish we would have done that. And we talked about spreading his ashes other places, but the Catholic Church doesn't like you to do that. So my brother's like, why don't we create Flat Pat? So just like Flat Thomas, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, something kids take around. We created the Flat Pat graphic and it went global. Flat Pat went to China. He went to Egypt, I think. He went to the beach. He went skiing. He went to Notre Dame where my dad went to college. He was a pumpkin. He was a salad or a veggie dip. Any way we could get Flat Pat out there, he was out there and he's still around. So why not today? And so where that speaks to me is courage. My dad did some courageous things in his life. He actually ended up going to Notre Dame, not because that was his choice, but because he was in a major car accident. People ask where to get the eye patch, and it was because he was in a car accident. And I graduated high school. He was supposed to go to college in California. That fell through. So his parents literally put him on a train in the middle of the semester and sent him to Indiana, and he went to Notre Dame. So that was definitely a courageous, why not today kind of thing. And so I want to talk in this podcast about why not today and being courageous. Why not today is all about courage. Doing things that are scary, doing the things. I recently listened to a podcast, and Daniel Pink, who wrote a new book called Regret, he says people regret failures of boldness. Over time, people regret inactivity over activity. People regret playing it safe rather than taking a chance. What matters most to us, he found, is feeling bold, being bold, and doing something new, learning, growing, and trying new things. And so that's what all this, why not today and being courageous really speaks to me. So I heard that, and that just really affirmed that, okay, I need to do this podcast. So how have I been courageous in my life? Well, I started my Mary Kay business, not really as a real business, but as a way to get my products at a discount. And I thought it was fun. So it was kind of courageous, not super courageous. But then 5 years later, I figured this was a much better world. And I was super courageous, quitting my full-time job to totally support myself with Mary Kay. I had not replaced my income, but I thought the worst thing that can happen is I'll have to get another job, which, by the way, because of all the connections my father introduced me to, I've never looked for a job in my life. But I made that choice, and God had a bigger plan for me, because 6 months later is when my dad had his first stroke, and I was able to drop everything and be at the hospital and be there to care for him, not have a job to worry about. When I quit my job, there was somebody I worked with that almost looked like he was in tears, not because he'd be sad I was gone, but because he didn't have the courage to leave. And that was 22 years ago. He's still there and probably still not happy. So what are we doing in life just because we're scared to try something new? And what are you doing in life that is holding you back from the courage? So doing this podcast is scary. Like, I've put it off and put it off and put it off. It is strategically coming out today. If you're listening to it live on the first day, March 5th, 2022. And that is because March 5th was my father's birthday. And unfortunately, the day that he passed away, only my father would leave on his birthday. But so it's scary doing this, but you know what? I just, it's like, I have got to do it. This is my deadline. Today is the day I'm going to do it. So who knows what it looks like and who knows how it sounds. And it's not perfect. And I don't have music in the beginning, and I do have the logo. So at least got that going for me, but I don't have all the other pieces all figured out yet. But I'm just going to try it one day at a time. My goal is to do this every other week. And I guess it'll launch on Saturdays. So who is courageous out there? So my idea of this podcast is to talk to courageous people and hear their stories and hear what they did to be courageous, whether it's a little thing or a big thing. So who is courageous? Who started a business? Who quit a job? Who acted on an idea? Who started a nonprofit or left corporate America to work for a nonprofit and do something they're passionate about? Who left a job for something better that was passionate, not just to collect a paycheck? I have a friend of mine that I want to interview that's running for office. Who's been willing when they're going through a hard time to ask for help? I had a friend that went through a really rough time, and she put out on Facebook her hurt and the pain, and that was a cry for help. You know, have you been courageous to do that? My nephew Sam, when COVID happened or started, he was working remotely, and he had the courage to buy a Jeep and move to San Diego, all the way across country. He bought a surfboard before he bought a bed, is what I've heard. My niece Grace, who is involved in a nonprofit, she repelled a building as part of the nonprofit raising money. I'm like, how crazy is that? It was a major hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. You know, who has joined the military? There's so many things people have done that are courageous. And those are the stories I want to hear. So if you have a story, I want to hear your story. We'd love to have you on the podcast. Or if you know somebody, and it doesn't have to be big. You know, what does it take to be courageous? From the movie We Bought a Zoo, said, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage, 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery to say yes, to try it and maybe not succeed, but that's okay. You can try again. To ask the question, it's the big, it's the little things, it's being courageous to live better and be better. We rarely regret doing the thing. We almost always feel better when we do it. Mel Robbins, who has a book and a famous TED Talk, and it talks about the 5-second rule, like just going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just doing it, whether it's getting out of bed, quitting an addiction, asking that person the question, quitting a job, whatever it is, just have the courage to do it. I used to teach water aerobics, and one of the things I always told the people in class is, especially around working out and doing the things we don't feel like doing, we can talk ourselves out of it really quickly. So I always said, at the end of the day, how will you feel if you did it, or how will you feel if you didn't? You know, as far as working out, you know, we don't feel like it when we get up, but we always feel better when we do it. I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever felt worse after working out. But if you get up in the morning and thinking, oh, I'm going to go exercise, do whatever you're going to do, and then you talk yourself out of it, and all day long you think, I should have, I wish I did, I'm bummed I didn't, and you regret it all day long, and that's all you think about. But if you do the thing, then you feel so much better, and you're glad you did, and you really don't think about it all day long. And when you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day, you feel better. There's a great book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog, and it talks about doing the yuckiest, scariest thing first in the day, because when you think about it, it grows. Like if you need to make that call, do that thing. Doing this podcast today, I'm recording it early. I'm going to debut it on Saturday, but I'm recording it at 4:00 in the afternoon. I have procrastinated all flipping day long and done this and then done that and tried this. And I'm like, just do it. And I'm going to feel so much better when I did. So what are those things, little things, big things that you're courageous with? So where do I see this Why Not Today podcast going? So as I said, I want to interview people. I want to hear people's stories. I love connecting with new people. I love making new friends. I always say a stranger is just a friend I haven't met yet. And so meeting new people connecting with new people, hearing people's stories, inspiring people. If I can just have one person listen to this and inspire you to make a difference and to change your life. I actually met a young lady a couple of years ago. She just graduated from college and said she hated her job. I'm like, well, why don't you get another job? She goes, well, you're not supposed to like your job. Well, I am so grateful that my father taught me that, you know what, you need to like your job, and there's ways to enjoy life, and it's not all about collecting a paycheck, and there's so many other things available. So this podcast is about sharing people's stories. I actually just thought of another person I could interview is my mother, and she was courageous, having 6 children. My youngest sister actually has Down syndrome. And believe it or not, when she was born almost 40 years ago, people asked my parents if they were going to keep her, which of course there was never a question. But that was courageous to raise a child with a disability. And it's taken a community and a village to do it. My dad, some of the other courageous things he did is he helped start a nonprofit to help adults with disabilities. So there's so many people that are courageous, so many things that we've done that people don't know about. So that's what I want to do. I want to share the story. I want to carry on my dad's legacy. I want to share people's stories, what they've done, how they've been courageous. And I envision this more than just a podcast. I want this to be a community. So I have a Facebook group or page. I'm going to have an Instagram account. I want it to be a community. I want it to be a culture, a place to connect with other people, a movement to share my dad's legacy and make a difference. So I mentioned the cups that I made for my family for Christmas, but I've had a couple people ask to buy them. And so I thought, why not have a movement kind of like that? What's that t-shirt? It's a Good Life or something, that they have all this stuff. I'm like, why not a brand that says, why not today? And a cup, a vinyl for your car, which I have, a t-shirt, I don't know, a baseball hat, or life is good. That's the one thing I was thinking about. So, where's it going to take it? So I'm going to have some swag. I'm going to have some promo stuff. And the logo, as I said, it says, why not today with question mark, but it does have my dad's logo. And so many people know the difference he made in so many lives, not just locally, but all over the country. And I want to be able to share that. So this is the Why Not Today podcast with Leslie Kane. It's our first episode. Let me know what you think. Comment, share it, tell a friend, and let's start a movement. Let's make a difference. Let's be courageous together and think, why not today? So again, thanks for listening, and let me know what you did courageous today. Why not today?